So one of these ways is by using straight compressors straight on the channel strip. So I have my snare right there. What you can do, because nowadays you have compressors that actually have a dry and wet signal. So that's our dry and wet right there. This in a way acts as parallel compression. When you mix a dry and wet signal, that's parallel compression. So you're mixing between these two signals. Normally what you would do is get another track that contains the same audio. It could be a return track, and you're mixing a dry signal that has no effect on it, and you're mixing it with a wet signal that has a lot of compression. But you can do this with a compressor like this one, because this compressor has a mix in, which is mixing a dry and a wet signal. And this, in a sense, this is parallel compression. It's all it is. It's just compressing one signal with the other, the compressed signal. Now what we could do here is give some really high compression to this, and we're going to mix it in with the wet signal. Okay, so this is one of the ways. So it's super quick to do, and you have it right there on your channel strip. So one of the reasons why I don't do it this way is because the compressor is actually on the channel strip of the audio signal, which means that you are in fact compressing the audio signal, which is meant to stay dry with no effect on it, okay? And if you're going to put some other effects after that on this channel strip, then you are affecting the signal that is compressed. So in a sense, if you're doing this on the go, you can use this technique and just mix the dry and wet signal. But so the whole idea is that you keep a full dry signal, and on the side you have a wet signal on another channel strip, on another signal path. So let's look at another way of doing parallel compression on the MPC. Also, the question is, why would you want to use parallel compression? So one of the reasons why is because you might really enjoy the sound of your kick, and you enjoy the sound of your snares or your vocals. I mean, you can do this in any signal, in any audio. So you might really enjoy it. And once you drop in that compression, you're actually changing the dynamics. You're changing those transients, and the sound isn't the same as it was. So it's changed with the compression. And by doing parallel compression, you keep that original sound, and you add some extra bass to it, some extra harshness on the snares if you want, some extra strength on the drums, by doing it on the side on another audio signal without messing up the original sound. So this happens to me quite a lot when I'm compressing my snares, and it completely changes the sound of the snare, and I don't want that. I want to keep that sound of that snare. So let's look at another way of doing it. It's by using the return tracks. So still using the snare, we're going to go into the program. Let's go into the effects, and we have our send right there. We can send this to return track number 1. So we're sending our full signal into return track number 1. Let's go into the menu, channel mixer, returns, return number 1. So we're going to add in a compressor. Actually, I'm going to put the airstrip. This is the one I like to use. If I want to create some parallel compression, I'll use this because this comes with an EQ, and I want also to change the sounds of the snare. Okay, so let's go in there. Now we don't have any dry wet here, and we can compress our sound straight away because we have our signal path open to return track. The sound is already coming in. Now we can see that compression popping up right there. So I want to give some gain on the bass as well. Okay, so we have our compressor on return track number 1 right there, and now you have two separate signals, unlike the other one that we were using before, where we had to put the compressor straight onto the signal path of the snare. Now we can have the compressor on a separate signal path by using send number 1. So this is the signal dry. And then you're adding in that extra compression coming from the return track. But first of all, let's listen to the beat. Let me just hear how it sounds. See, I'm just dialing in a little bit just so I get a bit more power on that snare, but not too much. I don't want to destroy the original sound of that snare. Now, I need to point out a few things here about the return track and how you should use it, or at least for you to get a full understanding of how it's working. So I want to lower the sound of the program. And now I only have the actual sound of the return track playing, okay? Let's go here into the program edit. If I turn this down, you won't hear anything. Obviously, if we open up the sends to the return track, we start hearing that sound going into the return track. I'm going to leave this at full send. Okay, so I'm sending the whole signal. Open it up. I want you to have a look at the signal that's coming in. Okay, it's coming in all the way. It's compressing by 30. Okay, so we're getting more audio coming into the compressor. All right, if I go back into the program, obviously if I put this down, we have less sound going into the compressor. Okay, less audio, less compression. So if you change the amount here that you send to the compressor will create a different sound on the output. The question is, should you use the send here to control the dry and wet signal, or should you put it all the way up? Now this is really up to you how you want to use it, but if I was to use this, I would prefer to actually have this all the way up, have the send all the way up, and then control the volume of the return to control the amount of compression that's going to be mixed in with the dry signal. Okay, we can now mix in our compression, our parallel compression with the snare. Now, one of the cool things about using a return track is that you can send all the sounds into the compressor at the same time. I can go into my hi-hats, kick. Now all my drums are being compressed by the return track. So it's just an extra dry and wet signal that you have there that you need to be aware of. I'd rather keep mine all the way up, have the full sound coming into the compressor, and then just, you know, play with the volume from the return to mix in with the dry signal. So another way of using parallel compression. So here I have the same kick on the side. You can just copy a pad. It's easy. You just go like that and you copy the pad. Let me undo that. So this is exactly the same sound. There's no difference here. There's no effects on it or anything. Exactly the same kick. What you need to do now is to have this kick trigger the other sound at the same time. And this is one of the things that I really like about the MPC is simultaneous play. It just allows you to do so much with the MPC, and parallel compression is another thing. So it's exactly how you're thinking. This one triggers that pad, and you can add the compression just to that pad alone, and that will be the pad with compression, and this will be the pad with the dry signal. And then you have parallel compression that way. So let me drop a compressor here on this pad. Let's go here into the effects, channel strip. I want to add some bass here to this. You can increase this compression a lot, just make it really extreme, because then you're going to dial it in slowly with a volume fader. So I'm going to keep it like that for now, and I have a pad that has the compressor in it and a dry signal. This one is obviously triggering pad A5, and all you need to do now is to mix in the volume. It's easier to go here to the pad mixer now, levels, let me put that there, and this is our wet signal. And you can hear that signal coming in. Now, there's another thing about this as well that you get from using this technique, and that's why I like it so much, is that you get to control the kick a little bit more. So the kick right there, you can actually change the semitones. You have all the functions from the program edit to then give some extra to that kick, and you can go to the filter and change the dynamics of the kick by using the envelope right there. So it's cool as well. You might just want that transient right there at the beginning to hit harder. So these are my 3 ways of parallel compression. Thank you so much for following the channel. Thank you to all my family at Patreon. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. If you're not on Patreon, think about that, because I drop some really good content in there. Some samples, some royalty-free samples. And that's it. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much. Peace.